Ladies and gentlemen, I think before we start to break down the fight, before we start to do an analysis of how this thing went down, the first thing that we need to do when we talk about Jake Paul versus Anderson Silva is we need to acknowledge the performance that these men put on. Both of these gentlemen came up to fight. Whatever you thought was going to happen, whatever promise you thought was made as far as the drama, the performance, whatever was going to be delivered by each man himself. He's coming out there, they're selling wolf tickets, they're talking loud, they're building up this performance, they're predicting what each one's going to do to each other. Whatever you thought Showtime was promising to deliver in the way of the production value that they were putting into this. The fact that this was a pay-per-view. Maybe you thought, hey, this is a pay-per-view. By the fact that they're willing to charge for this, they must be almost in a way guaranteeing us a certain performance. They must be saying both of these men are a caliber of athlete. Both of these men are dedicated enough to make this happen. It's going to be worth your money. Right? So maybe you thought going in that you were expecting a certain type of performance. Whatever you expected, whatever you thought it was going to be, it was more. It was more than that. The drama, the theater, the intrigue, the performance that comes with it all. And look, I'll be the first to admit, I'm about as hardcore fan as you can get, in my opinion. When I go out and I see other people, I talk to other people, most people are a lot more casual than I am, man, and that's cool. That's awesome. I just happen to love the sport like that, right? I just have that passion for it. And even I like a little bit of drama with my fighting, like a little bit of intrigue, like a little bit of storyline. We all do, right? It's why the WWE is so successful. They're masters. They're masters of working drama into things. So what a fight, man. What a good fight. Both of these men were well prepared. They were both motivated. Both men were ready to answer the call in the face of adversity. You know, we saw that first round come out and we saw a typical Anderson Silva type performance in the sense that very inactive. Threw five punches in the first round, landed 2 of them. Not very impressive. Not going to win rounds that way. And in an 8-round fight, you got to win every round. You got to go out there and you got to put on a performance every time. Don't have rounds to take off. It's one of the things, or one of the reasons that I went with Jake Paul going into this fight. You can look at it in a shorter fight. I thought that benefited him. And we saw it right away in the first round. Now, that being said, he came out in the second round and didn't waste any time. Right away in the second round, we saw Anderson Silva start to change his game plan. Downloaded everything he needed in the first, came out in the second, got on that front foot, started being more aggressive, started throwing with both hands. Didn't really land anything clean, but he was making some contact here and there. And I'll be honest, that was where we saw the first test for Jake Paul. That was where we saw what he was going to do and how he was going to respond. Because when Anderson Silva, a man who's tricky and shifty and slick, and he was throwing with both hands and he was starting to be aggressive, and that's when guys get worried. That's when guys start to shell up a little bit because they're unsure of what's going to happen next, right? This dude can come out with a crazy shot, very explosive, very fast from an angle, and it'll put you out. So it was easy to it was the time to see how Jake Paul was going to respond, and he responded well. He shelled up a little bit, went into some defense, but he answered back. He started throwing some hard combinations, started going to the body very well. Like, dude, he did exactly what you would want a young fighter to do in the face of adversity, in the face of a legend, a man who comes into the ring with like a mythological following behind him. But Jake Paul responded well, man, and the fight went on, and we continued to see good work by both men. A lot of those rounds were really close, really hard to score. One of the things that I thought was interesting was that in between the 4th and the 5th round, Jake Paul's corner, I think it was BJ Flores, said, he's starting to get tired. We're starting to get him. He's starting to wear down. And you knew that was going to be part of their game plan. You knew part of their game plan was, look, we're going to go to the body early. We're going to have a good work rate. We're going to wear this old man down. He's 47 years old. He's not going to be able to hang. He's going to come out. He's got some ego involved. He's going to fight tough at first. He's going to put up some adversity at first. He's going to try to look good. He's not going to want to get embarrassed. He's going to be out there. But we're going to wear him down. We're going to beat him down. He's going to fade late, and that's when we're going to get him. It was easy to see how that was going to be a part of the game plan. And it was easy to see how Jake Paul was starting to deliver on it. Look, it was ironic. I would have gave Silva the 5th round, or it was at least a very close round. So it's ironic that right before that was when they come on and they would say that he was starting to fade. Nevertheless, I gave more of the late rounds, right? That second half of the fight, 5, 6, 7, 8, I gave more of those to Jake Paul, up to and including when he scored that knockdown in the 8th. I mean, look, man, Silva looked better than I thought he would. He was coming forward and being aggressive on the front foot. I thought he was going to be a little bit more on the back foot playing the sniper. I thought he was not going to succeed well in the clinch or inside in tight. He found a good uppercut and he was landing it all night. He found a good home for it. I thought he was going to have less punch resistance than he did. We saw Jake Paul, a man who's a good puncher, who's strong, go in there and land some good, solid shots. We saw him drop Silva. Silva got up from it. Dude, this was everything you could want from a fight, and both men showed up. Both men delivered. Awesome performance. My hat is off not only to both men, but particularly to Jake Paul for going out there and defeating a legend like Anderson Silva, who even at 47 years old did not want to lay down, did not want to give it up. He came out there to win, and he wasn't able to. Now, the post-fight I found interesting. On the one hand, they brought up the fact that they're going to be getting together for this, United Fighters Association. I think that's absolutely phenomenal. I can't wait to see what kind of fruit that tree yields. I think it's got some real potential. I think it could, but I think there's a lot of moving parts that could make something like that very difficult. There's a reason it hasn't been done yet, and it's not because it's easy. The reason nobody's put this thing together, but so many people have talked about it, isn't because it's going to be some cakewalk. But should they get it started, man, it could be absolutely revolutionary for the fighters in the industry as a whole. So that's one interesting part. And then the second is his call-outs, right? We got to figure, man, a guy like Jake Paul, a guy who mastered social media to the degree that he has, plans on getting that mic stuck in his face if he wins, and he's going to have something to say. So when he's there, we're interested. And he comes out with Nate Diaz. Man, of all the people that he could potentially call out, the man calls out Nate Diaz. Now, look, I'm not opposed to it, okay? Other than the fact that I don't want to see Nate Diaz take a beating, and I don't think that fight's going to be great for him. Nate Diaz in a boxing ring, although he has skills, I think Jake Paul is going to be way too much for him, especially at that weight, man. You're talking about 185. That's the weight that Jake Paul fights at. Nate Diaz, in his heart, the man's a 155er. He's been fighting at 170 and taking the bigger fights because he doesn't want to cut weight. Or maybe he can't even make 155 anymore as he's gotten older, but, he's been fighting at 170. And now you're talking about fighting a young, strong, hungry Jake Paul at 185 pounds. A Jake Paul who was just able to handle the striking of Anderson Silva, and now you're going to step in there with Nate Diaz. So I don't like that one because I think it would be Jake Paul would be a heavy favorite going into it, and I don't want to see Nate Diaz take that fight. And then afterwards he goes out and he just goes all the way out, dude, shoots the Hail Mary, the long shot, puts everything on the table and says, and this goes for you too, Canelo. This goes for you too, Canelo. Look, man, you got to give credit where credit's due. You asked the man to pull out a card, he pulls out the ace. He said, I'm calling out the biggest possible fight out there. We're putting it all on the table. If I was Canelo, I wouldn't even respond, man. I would not even dignify that with the response. You're doing great, Jake Paul. You've done some good things. You went over there and you just made your biggest fight by beating Anderson Silva. Don't think that you're ready to call me out and have me respond. Don't think that you're ready for even potentially considering a fight like this. Who knows what the future holds, but at this given time, with everything that Canelo's got going on, with as much as he's established himself in the sport, as dominant as he is, the money that he draws, the pay-per-views that Canelo draws, and the money that he generates when he fights is on a whole nother level. You don't see, that's not what Jake Paul is doing. That's not the numbers that Jake Paul is turning in. So, of course, on the one hand, Jake Paul wants to get that fight. But let's be real, man. Canelo's got bigger fish to fry. But I thought it was cool that he called him out. So, all in all, amazing performance. Awesome fight by these two gentlemen. I was impressed with what I saw from both of them, particularly from Jake Paul. He continues to improve his skills. He continues to get better in this game. He continues to show how dedicated he is. You know this guy's got to be in the gym working. You know this guy's got to be in the gym putting in the hours, putting in the effort. We hear about the sparring partners that he has. We hear about the talent that he's out there working with. And he continues to show it when he gets in the ring. Look, you saw him fight Ben Askren. You're like, Ben Askren's awkward, man. He's a wrestler. He's out of shape. He's old. He's had some injuries. No big deal. He smoked him. Whatever. You got a good punch. We saw him take the fight with Tyron Woodley. We're like, not that impressive. Take the rematch. We saw him starch Tyron Woodley. Face down, face planted in the canvas. Pretty good. But we look, and again, we talk about the limitations that Tyron Woodley has on his striking. We talk about what he's not able to do and how that's not impressive as a win for Jake Paul. So then we say, okay, I'm going to go fight Anderson Silva. Goes out there and drops him in the 8th round. Looks good when he does it. Shows heart. Shows that he's got dog in him. Shows that he's not willing to quit. Shows that in the face of adversity, he's willing to keep going. What more can you ask for, man? All in all, the man seems dedicated, seems to be continuing to prove himself, and I can't wait for what's next. So let me know what you guys think. Did you enjoy this fight? What do you think is going to be next for Jake Paul? Anderson Silva said he's not going to retire until God's the only man who can pull the plug on his career. What do you think is going to be next for him? Let me know what you guys think.